To week 13's video. We're going to focus on intelligence in this video, and I'll make sure you know what you're doing over the next 2 weeks. My joke, what's your IQ? Those tests are inherently flawed. Oh wow, that low, eh? Right? That we all kind of, it's just a natural thing that if something isn't what we want it to be, we say the test is flawed, and there are definitely some flaws, and the College Board really does highlight the areas in which IQ testing can be flawed, but there's a lot of people out there that will argue that they're pretty accurate in terms of measuring general intelligence. Not perfect, but pretty accurate. And there's lots of reasons why we wish, we always wish it, right? Like we always would say that if somebody has more intelligence than us, that I want it, and find reasons why it's not true. And it isn't everything, right? It doesn't take into account one's motivation to be successful and do well. So in that sense, you can have two people, right? One with really high IQ and low motivation, and one with pretty in the middle, or what we call average IQ, and with high motivation, and their life success will be quite different. But overall, intelligence is predictive of success in other ways. And we can see this. I have a little graph here: scores on intelligence test and annual income. Right, there is a general, right, higher, these are childhood, so higher intelligence tests tend to predict higher income, but look at the outliers, right? So here's an IQ of 80, and there's lots of people, not lots, but there's data points earning that, right? But in general, we see this trend, right? That it goes up as your intelligence goes up. So there is what we call, I think you did it this week if you don't remember, something called predictive validity, right? So are we able to use our results to make future predictions? And with IQ, we definitely are. So, all right, that brings us to what we're going to do today. I want to go over week 13 and 14 on the course page. I don't believe I need to even have a video for next week for week 14 because it's Thanksgiving week. I'm trying to make that be a lighter week. So this video will be for week 13, and there won't be another video for week 14 because you'll do the Socratic seminar debate all online. So I would like to preview all of that with you right now. So here we are with week 13. I'm going to go over this Socratic seminar planning page in just a moment. Again, you're going to work on one of the free response, the evidence-based question this time. Last time we worked on that article analysis question, so this time the focus will be on the evidence-based question. You're going to do your progress check. Remember, the progress check has two parts, a free response and a multiple choice, because that is how your exam's going to be. And then there'll be an assessment on the College Board website. I have lots of extra practice down here. So between the progress check and the unit assessment, if you see that you have some weaknesses, you can use the College Board's extra videos. You can ask me to assign extra questions on the College Board, but there's also all of these extra parts here. And then in week 14, you're going to have your debate, and you're going to have a reflection on this Socratic seminar. So let's talk about what that is. And I just have an information page up here for you, and there's a planning document here. So our topic, right? And I think this activity does go better live when you're in person and you're talking to each other in real time, but we can try to make it work in a discussion format, an online discussion format too. So the topic is, what determines intelligence? And this is very open-ended on purpose, because I think we can all learn a lot by gathering in what each person takes out of the resources. So you are going to use, whoops, this didn't open in a new page. Let me open another one so I keep that up. I want to bring you to all of those resources. So I have put a whole bunch of resources up here, many different ideas, and I really would like for you to stick with these resources, because then we're kind of all coming from the same place. If you find another really good resource, if you check it with me in advance, I'm happy to add extra things. Sometimes when students send me things, I add extra resources here, but there's lots of resources, many different ideas, and you're going to answer what determines intelligence from your way of thinking, from your perspective, and a thesis statement is 1 or 2 sentences. All right, so 1 or 2 sentences, what do you think determines intelligence? And then you're going to provide at least 3, right? There's place for 3, not discussion questions. You're going to provide evidence. Doesn't have to be 3, it can be however you support your thesis, right? You want to tell us which site means you're telling us where it's coming from, and you're trying to include the information, like you said, cite your sources, support your thesis. Then 3 questions that you would like to ask. All right, and we can't really, this track part and this how did your view change, we're going to do that as a reflection. So on your planning page, you're just putting in your thesis, your support, and your questions. And when I see your planning page, I'll know you've done the background work, and then I'll approve for you to do the discussion. All right, so here you'll come back to the course page here. So you submit your planning page in week 13 so I can see it, and then in week 14 you'll be able to post to the debate. All right, and this 14 meeting is just for the live class, but the class watching the videos will use this debate, and then you'll finish this reflection page, right? So week 14 is very short because it is American Thanksgiving, and I want you to celebrate with your family if you are celebrating this holiday. All right, so now, so that previews what we're doing in week 13 and 14. We went over the Socratic seminar assignment. We're going to review these theories of intelligence. I like these little truth or facts, because they make you think, and then we can review each one. So 1, true or false? Most psychologists agree about what intelligence actually is. True or false? Intelligence is generally regarded as the ability to do well in school and to do well on standardized intelligence tests. True or false? Creativity is considered a type of intelligence. True or false? Successfully comprehending social situations is not really considered an aspect of intelligence. And true or false, it takes about 10 years of intense daily practice to become an expert in chess, dance, sports, music, and medicine, among other things. So if you need more time to think, just pause the video and see what you got, true or false. And then we're going to go through these. So I just bring the fact that on your concept map, we have these different theories of intelligence. So that would say most psychologists agree about what intelligence actually is false, because we have quite a bit of disagreement, right, in terms of how we measure it, what it is, right? Why do sometimes we get differences in measurements? So definitely a false statement. Intelligence is generally regarded as ability to do well in school and on standardized tests. Also false, because we have different ways of measuring emotional intelligence and so forth. Now, in terms of going over these, remember, general intelligence is this idea of little g, that we have something that kind of guides our general ability to do this. And we really can see this because if we took 1,000 people and we just took 100 different questions or tasks, and we had all 1,000 people do them, we would get a rank order of those, like a race, right? If you had 1,000 people go in a race, you'd have 1,000 people, you have first, second, third, fourth, fifth of how fast they finish the race. And we get this if we take those 100 questions and we see how many right the people get. We're going to get a general order of those 1,000 people. And then if we took 100 different tasks and we did it again, we would find that overall, those 1,000 people, they don't line up perfectly in the same, right? Like doing 2 races, like here's a race and then another race. They're not lining up exactly in the same order, but they're very, very close. And this is really what is meant when we say G, because there seems to be this underlying factor that people kind of line up in different orders, or not different orders, in almost the same order, no matter what tasks we give them, right? Because it's an average. It's not saying, you go climb a tree, one task, and you go run a race, and you go swim, and you write a poem, right? It's not asking them to do one task and seeing, because then the 1,000 people would line up in many different orders. But it's saying on average, when we take a bunch of tasks, right, not physical tasks in this case, but thinking tasks, and we line the people up, we get something that is this G. All right. And Gardner comes with this term of multiple intelligences. And I ask you just to think, do you think he should have used the terms intelligences? Because yes, we all have these kind of different, I would have used the word interests, because here's where motivation really comes into play. If I really enjoy artwork, right, then I'm going to pursue that. I'm a person who loves to use my body, right? And I've gotten really good at doing it, maybe because it's not really connected to my intelligence, right? And he probably really was getting at something, but it's probably not the same thing as G, because it pulls in aspects of motivation, personality, interests, and so forth. So most researchers will say there's not a whole lot. When they try to break down Gardner's intelligences, they see it still has this underlying G behind it. And it brings us to the same question on learning styles. Is it really useful for me to try to find out, are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Are you a kinesthetic learner? Teachers love using this, and it sounds so good. But the truth is, the kid who has a higher G, whether they're presented information orally or visually, they'll still line up in that same order, right? So those 1,000 people, if we took them all and we said, okay, I'm going to present information to you visually, and then we said, I'm going to present information to you auditorily, we get roughly the same order of those 1,000 people. So we can't really say that this is true. Now, that doesn't still mean that you don't have your preference of what you kind of enjoy more, what sits better with you. It's just saying that if we order people, we end up kind of in the same order. And if you have questions about this, I would love the questions to be sent, and we can discuss it more. All right. So 3 was creativity is considered a type of intelligence, right? And this one is true. All right. So creativity is considered a type of intelligence. And I ask you to stop. There's a discussion there, right? That we've had of how do you define creativity, right? To make sure you know what that means. Now, a kind of intelligence, is it the same as intelligence, right? And I think we have to see that we can break it down into different, we need to define it very carefully. So analytic intelligence is assessed by intelligence tests. That's really what we're often measuring, because when I give an IQ test, there's one right answer. So these tests predict school grades reasonably well, and they predict vocational success modestly. It's like coming back up here, right? Vocational success would be how much money you make. So sometimes our IQ score could be rather lower, and we could still be very successful because we have other motivations. So analytical tests, or when I give a whisk. All right, so creative intelligence is demonstrated by innovative smarts, the ability to adapt to new situations and generate novel ideas. Well, let's talk about how that's done. Let me get rid of some of these things. So how do we really test for creativity? We can measure it by watching what somebody creates, actually, right? Like kind of checklists of what they've done. But if we're trying to measure this in a very concrete way, we call it the divergent thinking test. And what this might be is I give you a box of items. Let's say a paper clip, a piece of paper, some dental floss, and a hat. And I see how many ideas, and I give you some problem to solve that. And so fluency would be how many ideas do you come up with using those objects. Flexibility would be like, different categories, so different ways in which they're used. Originality is like I have 100 people doing this task, and some of the ideas are only one or two people come up with that. That's originality. And elaboration would be how in detail they can go of what they would do with the objects. So this is a way in which we can measure creativity. And we can call it creativity or creative intelligence. Practical intelligence is what's required for everyday tasks, and that may be poorly defined and may have multiple solutions, right? So like you have to run a household, which includes doing the dishes, cooking, washing the clothes, changing the beds, for me, gardening, all the things I have to do, right? The things come up, so it's not always really defined. And there's many ways in which we could accomplish these tasks, right? And we find obviously that intelligence tests don't necessarily measure this particularly well because they're not really trying to. We also see that you could see if you had a really good example, right? Somebody showing you how to do this and you doing it your whole life, that you would just kind of be pretty good at this because you did it, right? It's not asking you to come up with original ideas, but if you saw, let's look at this like from even a hunter-gatherer, right? A young boy sees his dad go hunting. He goes and does it with the tribe for many, many years. And then, right, he's able to just follow and do this. That would be a kind of practical intelligence. And that person may do very poorly on an IQ test and not score as high. All right, so successfully comprehending social situations is not really considered an aspect of intelligence, and that is false, because you can tell we measured social intelligence, right? And we can see very much that emotional or social intelligence has perceiving emotions, right? Can we recognize them in faces, music, stories, and our own, right? Understanding emotions, so I can predict what you're feeling. Managing your emotions, right? Not getting angry when you're not supposed to. Using emotions, I really like, you'll see when we get to studying emotions, I look at it as E and motion, because our emotions are meant to keep us in motion. They're meant to give us clues about whether we keep going, whether we stop, whether we take a break. They're very good at helping us. And it's kind of in the class, I stop and discuss here. Do you think spending so much time online with social media sites increases or decreases one's emotional intelligence? So maybe in your notes, pause the video here and give a little answer to this question, right? Because I think it's probably pretty important, because our emotional intelligence guides a lot about our interactions with others. And if we're not developing these skills as children, what might our future look like? All right, last one. It takes 10 years of intense daily practice to become an expert in chess, dance, sports, music, and medicine, among other things. I hope you said that one is true. All right, because it's called the 10-year rule, because about 10 years of intense daily practice will get us to that level. And that's about 11,000 hours of practice, right? So if you want to get good at something, you got to do it. That's just that simple. I tell my kids this all the time. I play basketball like this, right? I play basketball every day from about the age of 10 to 20. So that's 10 years. And I can not touch a ball for a year, and I can go out and I can hit shots, not necessarily the threes as well, because I lose some strength. Part of that takes just strength, but I still have all the form. I don't have to think about it at all. And if we remember, what's going on here is our cerebellum is taking over completely. It becomes an unconscious process. And before that, it's our frontal lobe that has to do all the guiding of our muscles. And so only when we do it over and over again are these connections become automatic. All right. I also challenge you to stop here, right? If you were going to measure intelligence, how would you do it? Right? What kinds of things would you put in your intelligence test? This is something we do in the live class. We spend some time working in groups to come up with this. So pause the video, right? In your notes, take a couple minutes to say, what would I do to measure intelligence? All right, a couple other terms I just want to make sure you keep straight. All right, is that we have this word aptitude test and we have achievement test. All right, so aptitude test would be like your SAT, right? So our SAT, the verbal and quantitative combined, they correlate. You see how the positive correlation that occurs here with your IQ score. So they are really a type of intelligence test, and that should make a lot of sense to you because I said, remember, if you take a whole bunch of questions and you ask people, no matter really what the questions are, you're going to generally line up with this G factor. All right, achievement tests, which is hopefully what what the AP exam is measuring, is what did you actually learn, right? And you can probably see to some extent that, how I had a professor who showed us, it was very interesting. It was just on learning combinations of letters and numbers. So no context, right? You couldn't really use any previous experience. And they just looked at number of repetitions to remember these letter combinations. And they had the IQs of the students. And so they could see that somebody with an average IQ required about 35 learning trials to memorize this list of letter number combinations. They could see somebody with a 115 IQ needed 15 learning trials, and somebody with an 85 IQ needed 55 learning trials. They all did learn the same thing. It was just how many trials they needed. So in terms of an achievement test, right, two people with the same IQ can end up with the same result. Person with the lower IQ probably needs to study it more. And this is where motivation comes in place, because if you're highly motivated, right, you'll work to do those things and you'll just spend a little bit more time at it. All right, as a quick review, the normal curve, this comes up, right? You really need to know, when is someone considered gifted? Gifted is this 130 or higher, sometimes 135 or higher, but you can see it's basically, you have between 130 and 145, 2.5% of the population have that, and over 145 is 0.1%. So kind of just depends on how high up the curve we want to consider. But remember how to interpret this. This means that out of every 100 people, 2.5, which obviously doesn't make sense, have an IQ over 130, between 130 and 145, sorry. And you would need, you don't, of 100 people, you don't even have one who has an IQ over 145, right? You need 1,000 people to get one that has this IQ. So it is. And on the other end, mentally retarded is the same thing, 70 or lower, right? And so we have this bell-shaped curve. Remember that we read this between one standard deviation, right? Because the standard deviation is 15, right? So you have 68% have between an 85 and a 115, plus or minus a standard deviation. 90% fall between those two. So 90 out of 100 people would neither be considered gifted or mentally retarded or cognitively disabled, depending on what term gets used. All right, I do want to take a minute here to also review these terms. So pause the video and you're going to sort, right? Does the term go with measuring consistently, or does it go measure with what you want to measure? Which way? All right. So measure what you want to measure, or just measuring it consistently. All right, pause the video, and when you come back, I'm going to sort these for you. So these two go here. Reliability is measuring consistently. Validity is measuring what I want to measure. Split half is measuring consistently. Test, retest is measuring consistently. And construct is another type of validity. Now, let's go through these terms. So this helped me so much in understanding validity and reliability. All right, if I look at a target, if I hit all relatively in the same spot, I'm reliable, right? I'm really good at hitting the right side of this target. All right, if I get some in the middle, I could be valid, but I'm not at all reliable. And if I get them all in the target, I'm valid and reliable. All right, so this one gets some right, but I'm all spread out. I'm not reliable. And if I hit my target, I'm valid and I'm reliable. Obviously, when we're measuring something, right? When I'm measuring intelligence, I want to be both valid and reliable. So let's go back to these terms. So that's why measuring consistently is reliability. Split half reliability is just a matter of taking a test and dividing it, whether I'm dividing it in quarters or dividing it in half, that both halves, both parts, like both arrows, are hitting the same spot, right? That's split half reliability. Test, retest, same idea, but now you're giving the test and giving the test again, right? Do we get roughly the same results both times, but they don't necessarily have to be measuring what we want to measure. Validity is we're measuring what we want to measure, right? We're hitting the target. And predictive of validity means that what I measured can predict some sort of future behavior or event, right? Like this one, right? Measuring intelligence, can it help me predict annual income? That is a predictive ability. Content validity is that I'm measuring all parts of what I say. So if I say that intelligence includes social intelligence, is my IQ test also measuring that, right? Is all the content, everything I say that is intelligence, is it all measured? And construct is, are we measuring what we say we're measuring, right? On a very simple level, like, yes, it's I defined intelligence as this, and my test is measuring it. And it's kind of, I can just show how it's doing that. All right, so we have run through a lot. You did a lot with intelligence last week too. So this is not just, I didn't try in this video to cover everything because you also worked on it all last week. But let's see, go to the College Board. There's a week 13 quiz on intelligence. Take that quiz and then you'll upload your results. And again, focus on any terms you didn't know, right? Use this as a time to review anything that you didn't get from last week that is on the College Board's website. And if you have questions, send them to me. I really like discussing these things, and I'm happy to do so with you. All right, have a very good week, and thank you for your attention.